Okay. Ms. Nelson, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. Ms. Rivers, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Judge. Good morning.
Great. Good morning to both of you. We've got a plea and arraignment calendar. I don't remember when we last had a plea and arraignment calendar. Some of these cases are very new. Some of them are less new. But everyone should be walking in the courtroom or connecting via Zoom. None of these is a custodial matter. And then I think we're going to talk briefly about Mr. Hodges' cases. I think that's what we've got for the calendar. So we'll just start at the top. Position one is Tomar Emmanuel Richardson. Are you Mr. Richardson? All right. Good morning. How you doing? I'm Judge McBurney. Is that going to, Ms. Patel, your case?
Yes, Your Honor. I will arraign him today, waive arraignment, and I've already spoken to Ms. Hall about the discovery that's needed. There's surveillance footage in this case. I've subpoenaed it myself, and then after the calendar, I'll speak to the client.
All right. Somehow, Mr. Richardson is out on bond. He has another case too. There's an unindicted matter. What do we know what those charges are?
Yes, a drug. I'm sorry, drug case, Your Honor, possession of marijuana.
And are they chronologically? The robbery occurred or allegedly occurred. Mr. Richardson got bond, and while on that bond, picked up the drug charges, or are the drug charges old?
Essentially, when they were executing the arrest warrant for the current case in this courtroom, is how the marijuana case.
Okay, all right. So they're somewhat procedurally connected.
Correct.
Understood. All right, that makes a little more sense. So if you would confirm Mr. Richardson's address, fill out the waiver form. I just want to make sure we're able to let Mr. Richardson know what's coming next. Let me see what we've got. Mr. Richardson, I've got you on Mason Turner. You still on Mason Turner? Apartment 3? Great. You'll get notices when you need to come back to court, whenever that is going to be. Ms. Patel will be reaching out to you as well, but it's important that we have your current address so that information gets to you. If you move, you need to make sure you let Ms. Patel know so she can get your address changed in the system, okay? So you're free to go when Ms. Patel says you can go. She may want to talk to you a little bit. She's got to fill out a little bit of paperwork on your behalf. But other than that, I will see you next, either because there are going to be some motions that we need to argue about your case, or because you and Ms. Patel have decided you're going to resolve the case, short of trial. And then the third option would be we'll get you in here for a trial, okay? All right, appreciate it. So you take a seat, and Ms. Patel will let you know when you're good to go. Sonia Anderson, 2 cases. Whose would that be yours?
Yes, Your Honor, and we had set this for notice.
Okay. And I guess we should have a fairly current address because one indictment isn't all that old. And Ms. Anderson is not here. Ms. Hall, good morning.
Good morning. The state requests a bench warrant, Your Honor.
All right, if you would coordinate with Ms. Nelson about that.
I will.
We'll take care of that. Position 4, Enoch Prince. Is Ms. Yes?
Good morning, Judge. This is Alicia Luncheon. I'm here on behalf of Enoch Prince. This case was reset because I wasn't able to get in contact with Mr. Prince on the prior arraignment. I have called both numbers that the court was gracious enough to provide to me. I spoke with someone who said that they were going to try to get in contact with him, Judge, but I was not able to make contact. And I was hoping he'd be in the courtroom today, but it doesn't look like he is.
Not so far. We'll call the name one more time when I get to the end of the calendar, but otherwise I think we'll get a bench warrant for Mr. Prince. if you make contact with him, Ms. Luncheon, and can bring him on in, that'll make it a lot easier to work through the bench warrant. It could be that, he moved and people didn't know that. I know you've been doing your best to try to contact him. So if somehow you do make that connection, let Ms. Nelson know. We'll figure out a date and time for Mr. Prince to come on in, whether you are with him or you appear remotely. Otherwise, the bench warrant will be sitting out there. Okay?
I understand, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for dialing in. Position 5, Ronald Carter.
Mr. Carter was part of that collective case, Shauna. He was reset because he could not be contacted at the last court date.
Okay.
I've reached out to the phone number that I have, but
You've done what you can with the info you have.
yes, sir.
Okay. Well, same situation as, I guess, these are all co-defendants, as with Mr. Prince. If you do come into contact with him, let's bring him on in. Otherwise, we'll leave the bench warrant out there. The calendar suggests there may already be a warrant for Mr. Carter. We won't
believe so.
double up, but we'll just make sure there's something that would get him here if he does come into contact with law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Then another co-defendant in that case, Nedra Edwards. All right, we struck out. Mr. Bridges, I think I saw you on the, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing, Your Honor?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. There's a little confusion with me on this case. I was appointed this case as a C3 back in March.
Mhm.
It appears that Isaac Gregory entered a waiver of arraignment on, it looks like April the 2nd, I think it was, on this case. I've reached out to Mr. Isaac, haven't gotten a response from him, but I'm assuming that he's the attorney and he's entered a waiver, but I don't see him on today. But notice would have probably came to me because he didn't file an entry, he just filed the waiver.
Yeah, let's see. I'm looking in the docket. Thank you for flagging that. So Ms. Edwards came to court. This is my handwriting on the change of address. We got her new address in the middle of March. And then so then in late March, there's notice that you are replacing Isaiah Gregory.
And that's what I thought, Your Honor. However, in April, he filed a waiver of arraignment.
Mr. Gregory. Okay.
Yes,
You're
Judge,
easier. Yes.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I remember emailing Mr. Gregory and he said he did represent her and that he was waiving arraignment. So he filled out the waiver arraignment, I assume, but not the entry of appearance.
Yeah, well, especially since he was coming off. This is confusing. So I guess Ms. Edwards didn't need to be here if Mr. Gregory told her I've waived arraignment on your behalf. Maybe we ought to set this down on another calendar, Ms. Nelson, and get Mr. Gregory to join us. I don't want Mr. Bridges to have to keep showing up if he in fact is not on. So you were appointed, Mr. Bridges, as C3.
Yes, Your Honor.
Got it. And so you're doing what you were asked to do. Maybe Mr. Gregory was retained, maybe he wasn't, unclear. Although he is filing some things, and he did file an entry way back in December of last year. So some wires may have gotten crossed when you were sent the paperwork indicating that you were going to be representing Nedra Edwards. Don't disappear on us. I think you may still get notice, but we ought to clear this up so you don't have to keep this on your case list if in fact Mr. Gregory is keeping it. Getting Mr. Gregory to connect is the tricky proposition. So we'll see what we can do. But I'm not going to sign a bench warrant at this point for Ms. Edwards, given what's in the docket right now. And Ms. Nelson, I guess if we could just get us on an inquiry calendar fairly soon, but make a note that we need Mr. Gregory and Ms. Edwards both to show up, whether that means virtually or come to court, so that we can either free up Mr. Bridges or free up Mr. Gregory.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bridges.
All right, y'all have a good day.
Landon Christopher. Hello, Mr. Christopher. I'm doing okay.
I'll speak with Mr. Christopher this morning, Your Honor. Don't believe he's hired private counsel, and if not, I'll be. Yeah, so I expect to represent Mr. Christopher. I'll speak with him.
Okay. Mr. Christopher has an old case as well with Judge Ellerby, and I've got the warrant. I don't know. You should take a seat in the jury box, Mr. Landon. You just come on in and sit in the jury box for a sec, okay? I don't know. We're going to figure that out. So if you just take a seat right there, we'll need to figure out. I have a probation warrant that Judge Ellerby signed from the 11 SC case, and we just need to sort that out. If Mr. Landon ought to be able to head out, we should let him head out. I just need to make sure we process this the right way. Judge Ellerby has made clear that we'll be working through this probation issue. When she signed the warrant, she added the note that the revocation is to be heard by Judge McBurney, who has the 21 SC. So she was able to connect the dots, or her team did.
Yes, sir.
So we'll take care of both. But we'll need to sort out that one warrant question.
Judge McBurney, he has his hand raised.
Yes, sir.
I was done with that prohibition.
It may be. We'll dig into it. Make sure, hey, is there a warrant? Is it valid, et cetera? If there is, I can't let you go until we sort that out. So, and Mr. Franklin is, he's not going to leave. He's going to stay here for this as well. He may talk to you about the new situation, and he'll fill out a waiver of arraignment on the new charges. But we got to work through this warrant as well. All right, position 9, Sanchez Lloyd. Is Jordan Singleton a private attorney or with the public?
Mr. Singleton is with the Public Defender's Office. If Mr. Lloyd is to show, then I anticipate representing Mr. Lloyd.
All right. He did get notice. See if there's anything particularly old about the, I mean, it's a new indictment, doesn't mean it's new charges.
If I recall correctly, from what I read, it was an incident from last year, I think, but I'll check.
So he was indicted just a few weeks, a little less than a month ago.
Yeah, it's August of last year.
August of last year. Okay. And it's one where there are 2 different addresses for Mr. Lloyd. All right. Well, I'll call his name one more time when we get to the end of the calendar, which is.
You, Mr. Lloyd? Oh, okay. He walked in as we were speaking.
Oh, you just walked in.
Okay.
All right. Wow. Just in the nick of time. We were talking about bench warrant. Mr. Lloyd, this is Mr. Franklin.
Good morning.
He will likely be your lawyer in this case. He's going to need to talk to you a little bit. Please don't leave until Mr. Franklin says it's okay to head out. This is your plea and arraignment date. If you're waiving arraignment, and that's a conversation you and Mr. Franklin will have, he's going to fill out a little bit of paperwork, and then we will get you back here whenever something next pops up in your case, arguing motions or resolving the case. Do you live on Hope Street or Hank Aaron Drive? Okay, apartment B15? All right. That's where it says they're sending things. So you got something in the mail telling you to be here.
Right.
Just had a little trouble finding it?
You said had a little trouble finding it?
Yeah, well, it's not 9:30, it's 9:45.
I think I am late, that's all.
Okay, it's good, but you got something in the mail. So stick around and talk with Mr. Franklin, okay?
Okay.
All right. And last but not least, Daryl Williams.
Your Honor, that would be my case. Unfortunately, the previous attorney lost the file, so I have a duplicate file with no contact information of Mr. Williams.
All right. Is that Mr. or Ms. Sampson?
Miss Sampson.
Miss
but
Sampson.
At this point, these files pass through so many hands, I'm not sure.
Who the loser was?
Correct.
Okay. So there's a phone number and an address in the system. You'll be able to look that up whenever, but it's a notice calendar. Notice did go out to the address that Mr. Williams had provided. So we'll do a bench warrant. If you are able, once you get your hands on any contact information to reach him, just let Ms. Nelson know. So just to check one more time, since some folks were drifting in, Sonia Anderson? Nope. Enoch Prince? Ronald Carter? Daryl Williams?
We do have a walk-in, Your Honor.
Okay, who's that?
Terrence Cole. We had a calendar. I couldn't find the exact date, but I know that he was previously on the calendar. Was not properly notified. He found out about the court date later, and he called Ms. Nelson last week, called me last week, and we instructed him to come in today.
Great.
So we would hope to work through the bench warrant issue. And
What's the case number?
19 SC 173902.
Terrence Cole. And which one is Mr. Cole? There he is. Hello, Mr. Cole.
Since finding out about the court date, he's been especially diligent about making sure he knew when he could get to court, and called me this morning to let me know he was on his way to court. So
Looks like he came with an escort to ensure that he got here.
yes, sir.
All right. And then does Mr. Cole have an older case with us also, or is it Mr. Wolf? This case got transferred from Newkirk to us.
From what I recall, I think Mr. Wolf has an older case.
Okay.
Mr. Wolf's his second case got transferred here, and that is what brought
Mr. Cole moved with Mr. Wolf.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so he wasn't aware that his case was moving from one courtroom to another. And I think that's kind of where the stuff kind of got lost in the sauce, so to speak.
Got it. So let's make sure, Mr. Cole, we don't want you to miss court again. I've got an address of 272 Glen Street. Is that where you stay? There's an apartment number. All right. So I'll have Mr. Franklin fill out a change of address form, because that's not going to be, if we send something to 272 Glen, they'll throw it away if they're a bunch of apartments. So we want to make sure we get it right. So Mr. Franklin's going to meet with you to update that. Ms. Hall, do you have a perspective on whether the bench warrant ought to be lifted in Mr. Cole's case? We need to have a discussion.
We can have a discussion, Ron.
Okay. You can take a seat, Mr. Cole.
In another courtroom.
Yeah, I have no problem lifting the bench.
No problem lifting it?
No problem.
Okay, so Mr. Cole, you get your one pass. Doesn't sound like it was 100% your fault that you didn't make it here. It is an older case. Where'd he go? Oh, he's over there. It's an older case, but it's something you're going to need to stay on top of now. So you're going to have Mr. Franklin's contact information. If you haven't heard anything about the case in a few months, reach out to him, make sure you're not missing anything. And we'll get the correct address with the apartment number into the system so that each time you've got a court date, not only will Mr. Franklin know, but it'll go out in the mail to whatever apartment it is on Glen Street, okay? And you live there, is that your own spot or do you live with someone there?
Live with my mom.
Your mom? Okay. Have you lived there for a while?
Yes, sir.
What does a while mean?
Year, 2 years.
About a year or 2 years.
Okay. And you plan on staying there in the near term, or are you looking to find your own spot?
I'm looking ready to find my own place, but I'm getting ready to graduate, so I'm trying to get off to college.
Graduate from where?
Banneker High School.
Great. You're free to move. You just need to make sure if you do move, you let Mr. Franklin know that new address so we can get it into the system. If you move and you don't tell anyone, those notices will go to Glen Street. And if you miss court, it's not going to be real impressive when you say, well, I moved, but I didn't tell anyone I moved. So just keep us posted if you do relocate. So you're supposed to graduate this spring?
Yes, sir.
Great. Do you have plans for after high school?
Technical college.
Have you been admitted?
Ain't been a minute. I was going to apply for one.
Okay. Ms. Nelson, do we need to, I know paperwork needs to be filed, but Ms. Hall said she does not oppose canceling the bench warrant. Is that paperwork we do, or does that come from one of the parties?
No, we'll cancel the bench warrant.
Okay.
We do the warrant. Cancellation.
Your Honor,
Yes, ma'am.
that concludes my business. May I be excused?
I need you to stick around until we sort out what's happening with Mr. Christopher. But then, yes, you'll be able to go. I'm having my team confirm the existence of the warrant, and then we can talk about it. In the meantime, should we talk about Mr. Hodge? Is Mr. Hodge here? He is here. Hello, Mr. Hodge. You've always been here. You were on a screen last time, so I recognize you from the screen. So we learned with much sadness last time we were together that Ms. Hannah has passed. I don't know if, in fact, we saw the funeral notice. You were able to hold it up, Mr. Hodge. Mr. Abate, good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
I don't know if the state was going to engage in other efforts to confirm that. Do you have any update from the state side about Ms. Hannah's case?
Obviously, we don't question the fact that Ms. Hannah's deceased. We have requested the death certificate just to make sure that we, do everything in an abundance of caution from South Carolina. We've had a little trouble getting it. We should have it shortly. So if I can wait to take any further steps on her position, once I get that death certificate, I will file a suggestion of death and an order for the court.
Okay, but it's in the works as far as you know.
Yes, Your Honor.
But it's not Georgia, it's South Carolina.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And Mr. Hodge did bring me a copy of the program.
Okay. Well, and Mr. Abate put it right. No one's doubting this, but for understandable reasons, given the severity of these charges, the state needs to document the file that Ms. Hannah in fact passed. All right. Well, then let's talk about Mr. Hodge. I know, Mr. Abate, you were going to take back to your team this development with Ms. Hannah and consult to see what might happen. Mr. Hodge has two cases. He's a co-defendant in the felony murder matter, and then he's got his own aggravated assault. Am I remembering Ms. Hannah was the alleged victim in that case, or it's a different person?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay.
In that case, the aggravated assault stated to today is prepared to null cross that position.
Okay.
As to the older case that involves the felony murder charge, me and Ms. Snyder have been speaking. We're trying to work out a resolution that we can come in the, meet in the middle somewhere.
Mhm.
Right now, we have not been able to do that just quite yet. I do understand this is a very old case, so I understand that Your Honor needs to move forward.
Well, we all do. It's not just me. Mr. Hodge, I think, is on supervised release.
Yes, sir, and he has been reporting faithfully to pretrial since 2000 and something.
He has. He's on. We get a list each month of inmates who've been in jail the longest. That's a bad list. And then this one of folks who've been on pretrial supervision, so our bond cases. And Mr. Hodge is probably top 5, but that it just means it's an old case. We need to be thoughtful about what we do. I don't think anyone in this room is to blame that it's taken this long. Especially there was an appeal with Ms. Hannah's, and I mean there are reasons why that case is where it is. It's a tragic situation, no matter how you slice it.
Someone complained, but I won't put it in the record.
Okay. So it sounds like the state needs a little more time on the Hannah side of the 13 SC case. And maybe during that window of time, discussions could continue. I think when the state is in a position to agree that the charges against Ms. Hannah should be dismissed, we'll reach that focal point where if it's not sorted out, I'm gonna need to get it on a trial calendar. Or work through, there may still be pending motions. I don't know if that was more from Ms. Hannah's perspective, but I think you had joined in the motions. Pardon me? Yeah. So we would need to work through that. I mean, that would be short circuited if there's a resolution, but I'll hold off on turning back to the demurrer because we're still waiting on the information from South Carolina. How far out should we reset the 13 SC case so that you're pretty sure you'd have the paperwork from South Carolina?
Your Honor, I don't think it would take longer than 30 days.
Okay. All right. Do you have any objection, Mr. Abate, if we modified Mr. Hodges' bond and removed the condition that he report to pretrial services?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. I bet pretrial services will appreciate it as well. You stay out of trouble, Mr. Hodge.
Always.
Well, almost always. All right. So you'll get notice in the mail, assuming you're at the same address you've been at, Mr. Hodge, when you need to come back. Ms. Snyder will let you know anyway. But when we reconvene in the 13 SC case, it will be to confirm that the state has received the paperwork from South Carolina. That will address Ms. Hannah's side of the case. And then we'll see, is there a resolution? And if there's not, then I'll need to get back to the demurrer. And depending on how that plays out, maybe there's an appeal. If there's not an appeal, maybe there's a trial.
There's some documents that I'm trying to find in our move to provide Mr. Abate of the classes that Mr. Hodges completed during his time. It's just frustrating.
The move was frustrating.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, keep looking. You've got some time while they're waiting for the documents from South Carolina. All right. Anything else on behalf of Mr. Hodge? And just to confirm, Mr. Abate, you are moving to null pros the 17 SC case, the aggravated assault.
That is correct, Your Honor.
We will take care of that. Thank you, Mr. Abate.
Do you need me to do an order, Your Honor?
We'll take care of it.
Okay.
You too. You know what? Actually, if you would, Ms. Hall has started doing these nice null pros orders that explain in one sentence. Here's why we're doing it. It was a drug case during the time when Paul Howard said, we're not going to prosecute marijuana, or the victim is deceased, or whatever it is. There's a one line, and this is why the state is moving to null pros. I think that's helpful for the file. I think it's wise, given the other case Mr. Hodge has, to do something like that. So it's like a 3-sentence order, but it has the state's basis for moving to null pros.
I have one prepared, so I'll send this over back to my office.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for being here. Good to see you, Mr. Hodge. Stay safe.
Yeah, approach her.
Yep.
I have to change the address for Mr. Cole
Excellent.
and his waiver of arraignment. Would he go ahead and free to go?
Yeah, he's good to go.
Okay.
All right. Can I see you for a sec, please? You, yes. So it's so you get coffee, people. It's up to you. How do you want to do it? Okay. Oh yeah, he's not disappearing. And you may even be able to come back out here, but you need to go with him.
But, excuse me, I paid off my whole probation, and they said they was closing my case when I had paid it off.
And we'll sort all that out.
I haven't been in any trouble, since I've been out on parole and probation, sir.
Well, there's this new case, clearly. That's a little hiccup.
Yeah, but like I said, I didn't do that, sir.
Okay.
Judge, what'd you think about Nesbitt?
That was huge. I was so impressed. I'll celebrate with Ms. Hall. So we had a murder trial about 4 years ago. Bruce Harvey represented the defendant. Girlfriend wanted to break up with him. He didn't like it. Went to her house late at night, shot her in the head. Dead. And he got a bond before I had the case. And he didn't do anything to mess up the bond. So he came to trial every single day, except when it was time for closing arguments, he snipped off his ankle monitor and disappeared. And the fugitive task force has been looking for him for 4 years, and they caught him yesterday in Alabama. So that's big. And he forfeited his appeal, so I don't have to do a motion for a new trial.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tell her he can go to, you can watch it on, what is it, The Most Wanted.
Yeah, he was on the most wanted list. Well, if you've convicted of murder and you're a fugitive, you make the top of the list. I was explaining, we had a trial about 4 years ago, in the murder trial, and the defendant was on bond and lasted until closing arguments and managed to not show up for closing arguments, cut off his ankle monitor and disappeared. They've been looking for him for 4 years. But just word to the wise, if you leave in the middle of trial, the fugitive disentitlement policy means you don't get an appeal. So, yeah, it's a tough lesson to learn. But he had 4 years doing what he wanted to do.
He was probably hiding. It wasn't even supposed to be.
So this was the mask that the grocery store /stab.
Yeah.
And you said you was in the top 20.
No. Yeah, you're not.
Okay, so when you saying no to a restitution to change from all property, you saying no to this, or you saying
I was saying
Marshall?
no.
That's the guy that's locked up.
Okay, yeah.
So this one is, so this is what we're talking about, but it's probably a misdemeanor that battery is really weak, but we supposedly throw a receipt or something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I had Ms. Nelson check in the system. She's confirmed that it looks active. What, do you need more from us?
No, actually, we need the probation officer, they have to come and transport him herself. Do you have enough for the probation officer?
So let me, we've got a probation, someone from probation on the call. Let's see what we can do. Ms. Crawford, good morning.
Good morning, Judge.
So our friends from the sheriff's office are here saying that your office needs to be responsible for Mr. Christopher's transportation.
That's fine, Judge. I'll contact my supervisor and see if someone is in the office, and I'll contact you back and let you know what the status is.
Okay, do you guys, people know who to talk to, or what would you like?
Yeah, you can give him my number. You can give me her number, or my number is good.
Okay. Ms. Crawford, can I give you the phone number of the sergeant who needs to manage this? So you can let her know what the plan is?
Yes, sir, that's fine.
Okay. Hold on one sec. I'm gonna just send it to her in the chat. So she's got it. Okay. 213, where are you from?
California.
Where in like LA?
LA.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
570.
I'm from Oakland. 570.
6491.
Bay Area. 213-570-6491.
Yes, sir.
All right. And your last name?
Tillman.
Sil or Till?
Till. T-I-L-L.
She's got it. So she'll find out who from her team is available. They can contact you and you guys will make it happen. Okay. Do you need any more paperwork or?
No, this is it. We just really escort them. They is responsible for their own one.
Okay.
And we just take it out of detention. They usually come down and pick them up.
Okay.
What did I miss in regards to Mr.
Well, one, he didn't do it. But two, he's been fine on probation, but three, it's a valid warrant. There's not a lot we can do about it.
Okay. The warrant, do you have the actual warrant printed up? I don't recall if it was in the email from Ms. Nelson.
I will print it up again. They just walked out with my, I'll print it again.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The trial started today?
It did. I went down there and Ms. Ocom and Mr. Dutcher are representing the state, and I'm blanking on the name. The guy's got a good lawyer. He's got two people representing him. But they picked the jury yesterday, and they are now starting. They've probably already done openings now.
Oh, but what judge?
Richardson.
Yeah, which unfortunately, it's still. I know that. I was talking. I talked and I walked out. But they said you threw something. What did you throw? Did you throw a bottle or did you throw? No, it was a sheet. Okay. Okay. So what was the paper? Okay. So I'm working on trying to get two of the charges, the terrorist aggression felony charge. My opinion, it shouldn't be. Right. And if we're able to get that reduced or worked out, talk about what a potential sentence looks like. But we have to have a conversation. That's the DA's in the morning. So she and I need to fight out. So you have to do. Oh, now. This is the.
It's crazy. Mr. McBurney, my first judge ever. It was like 2000.
Judge McBurney.
Yes, ma'am.
They're gonna have a transport officer call Sergeant Tillman when they're on the way.
Great. If Sergeant Tillman reappears, I'll let her know.
Okay, and she'll get a call from
she's here.
Officer Lucky.
You're gonna get a call. The transport officer is on his or her way, and they'll give you a call. It's Officer who?
Officer Lucky.
Officer Lucky.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you can.
So one case for 2012, first degree deportation, so what you doing now, working?
I got them too.
Yeah, what's your situation?
Even my phone, half hour.
Helpful.
I did, thank you.
Okay. I'll see what I can do with that. Let me get
All right, Mr. McBurney.
Good to see you, my friend.
All right.
I'm getting you there.
It's been put out there.
So I told him you would talk to him before he got transported away. I figured, but I just wanted you to know that I committed you. Question for you two, Ms. Patel and Mr. Franklin. So they're starting their first murder trial today down in 1D. Next week will be either another murder or I think it's an ag sodomy or something. The calendar after that has already been published, so we got 2 more weeks of CWAC and now murders are on it. Are you all thinking you might? I want to gauge your comfort level. I don't want to send another email saying, "Hey, send me cases." I know you've got cases and you've articulated persuasively, "Hey, we don't want to be the guinea pig because there are procedural defects and look at the stakes of the case." We should all see how the murder trial goes. It is not a second-degree burglary like the first trial, where for some reason there was an acquittal and right. But my point is, we will have at least 3, if not 4, pretty serious trials under our belt by the time the next calendar that we could put cases on is available. And so I just wanted to gauge your interest in saying, all right, let's do, pick your guy or gal who is sitting there, so that we can start moving some of those older ones.
Yeah, so I'll let you know from my perspective. I personally asked the client if they put my room on trial right now.
Yeah.
Of the several feedback murder cases I have, the 3 people who I've had serious conversations with about my teacher. I'll of course let them know what I think in my life.
Sure. I mean, you'll have new info for them,
Yeah,
but
it's not a decision.
no, you shouldn't. Yeah. Okay.
I have, so Mr. Tatum's case that we've rescheduled for motions is the only one I think that would potentially be a viable case, but I have a good offer from Ms. Hall. The issue is that my client needs to have the motion. There are mental health issues and he just needs that day in court. If for some reason the offer falls through or he ends up not taking it, that case could be tried.
Okay.
The only other case that I have in custody right now waiting for trial is a murder case. My issue there that I plan to bring up at our office meeting this week is that we plan to present a defense, which requires us locating these witnesses that are about 3 years old, and our investigators only come in once a week. And so we're not at a position to have the support that we need for me to prep this case. I have my investigator doing phone calls, but because he's immunocompromised, she's reluctant to go out there.
Okay.
And so I think that once the office, we're supposed to have this meeting, and I think that that's going to be a larger issue because if we're prepping for trial, we need the support of our investigators.
Right.
And I will send it to Pina on a Tuesday because he only comes on Monday. It doesn't get handled until the following.
Sure. So you're working with some delays. That's a tricky one for you because the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to find these people anyway.
And that's been the biggest issue this entire time. I've kept in touch with maybe one and that has a good phone number, but he's done it. He's found them before, but it's required him being out in the streets. So that being said, I believe Miss Ocom is the one trying this murder.
Correct. She's lead, and then Pat Dutcher is sort of sitting with her because it's her first Fulton trial.
And so I have the case with her, and I am trying to resolve it. I just need her ear when she's speaking.
Got it.
So I only have those two cases, I think.
No CWAS.
My Mr. Hamilton is in federal.
Well, that's right. We're done with him. And then you had the guy where they null crossed it, the gentleman who speaks Spanish.
Right.
Okay.
So the other CWAS cases, they're all out.
Okay. Well, then I see where you are. So maybe Tatum, if it doesn't sort out.
Right. But I am trying to actively resolve those short of a trial.
Okay.
But Mr. Oliver's not okay with trial yet. Mr. Tatum is more so, he's anxious to get things moving on this case.
Okay. And we had to reset because the detective, is this the one where the detective had been involved in a shooting?
No, this detective, I believe the issue is he has a newborn that
That's right.
has issues.
Okay.
It was another case, it was Morris.
That's right. With Mr. Shepherd and his heavy file.
Right. Which, Your Honor, by the way, that case does have there's a pending, I believe they forgot to mention that he's got a pending murder. That.
Meaning it's a CP murder?
CP.
Okay.
Right.
Would be great to resolve this one quickly then so that the murder goes somewhere else.
Right.
Those kind of cases always.
And then
Great. What about the guy with the screwdriver and the gun? He wants to go to trial. No.
I am anticipating, so that was his basis case. My conversation with Ms. Besa made me hopeful that we would get.
It could be resolved.
Could be resolved.
Could be. Okay.
It was originally an involuntary